Hi, I'm David Charlton, and this is Demystifying Mental Toughness Podcast. 5 minutes for a series of 10 episodes on a Tuesday for those interested in football or soccer and who want to play their best more often. Welcome back to the Demystifying Mental Toughness Podcast, and this is a special episode. It's a landmark episode. We're at number 200. Now, I was going to make a big fuss about this episode, but I've actually decided to keep it low-key. And we'll be continuing with the recent format where this is a football-related episode, which links to the series of 10 episodes. And then on Friday, which will be episode 201, that'll have something a little bit different about it. So yeah, please do watch out for that episode. Now, with this episode, though, there is actually something special about it. It is created for footballers, for soccer players, for coaches, for parents, and for those people who get carried away with outcomes, carried away with winning in a football sense. And if we think about it, it's everywhere, this thing about winning, isn't it? So you've got coaches on the sidelines at the start of a game trying to motivate their team by telling them it's a must-win game. We must get 3 points today. You've got the parent in the car with a young player telling them the opposition are rubbish and it's a game that they have to win. Then you've got banter between teammates as well, who are talking in WhatsApp groups or various other groups about the importance of the game, and again, this whole thing about winning. So it's all encompassing, and it's not just in football, it's across a whole range of sports. So how do you combat this? Well, certainly when I'm working with players, what I like to do is ask the question very early on, what is success to you? So what I mean by this is we're going to think about a match specifically. So there's a match coming up at the weekend, and you ask yourself that question, what is success? Now the answer is going to depend on the position that the player actually plays. But I've got to say the general response comes down to a couple of different things. You've got playing well, and then you've got this whole thing about the team winning. The attacker sometimes comes up with the answer that they want to score, or they want to create an assist. The goalkeeper and the defender, well, they might want to keep a clean sheet. They're common answers too. So these are great responses, aren't they? It's just what you want to hear. Well, I'm going to say no, surprisingly. That's right, the alarm bells are ringing for me straight away. But I've also got to say that these responses are perfectly natural, given what I've mentioned earlier about the different conversations that do take place and the culture that we live in. Winning is everything. And success is all about being competent at something. So, again, the goal scorer, they're scoring goals or assists. The goalkeeper or the defender keeping clean sheets. These are about being competent, and they're all outcome based, as are results and the scoreline. Which, when we think about it, when we think about the controllables, so what's under your control and what is out of your control, all of those answers are out of your control. So you need to be aware of that. And I'm going to bring some food into the mix here. I'd like you to imagine right in front of you is a nice, big, tasty looking chocolate cake. And that chocolate cake is cut into around about 30 slices. One slice goes on to represent, in my eyes, the impact one player has on a game. And then the other 29 slices relate to all the other players on the pitch. So that might be teammates, it might be opponents. It also relates to the substitutes on either side, coaches, to the referee, because every single person has an impact or an influence on the game. So the coach and their tactics, the referee and their decisions, the player and their decisions too, and the way they go about the game. Then you've got the equality of the opponent. They all influence outcomes in a game, be that goals scored or goals conceded, and obviously the final scoreline. So, to reiterate, one player has a small influence on the game. If we think about the 30 odd pieces of chocolate cake there. Naturally, maybe the better players will have bigger slices of cake. Players who are having a good day will have bigger slices of cake, but you're certainly not going to take up 3/4, 7/8 of that cake. And that can be a problem for a lot of people. For those people who have such an emphasis on the scoreline, they can carry the scoreline or scoring goals, assists, outcomes on their shoulders. It can weigh them down so heavily. So the lesson here is Just think about this chocolate cake and the size of the cake that you see yourself representing an influence over the game. Secondly, if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're a support staff member, and as a player, just think about those conversations that you have about winning, about the opponents being a good team or a poor team, and how that then influences the scoreline. Because every conversation you have about outcomes, about winning, can create this culture, can create this problem. And this problem essentially is fear of failure for a lot of players. An example I've seen hundreds of times on the training pitch or in a match. A player scores a goal and the coach responds with a "Great goal, well done." Now what's wrong with that? Nothing at all. There's nothing wrong with it. However, what I would like to add is, if the coach was to respond, "Great goal, well done. I noticed that your movement was fantastic. How you darted one way then the other way. How you showed and you demanded the ball." They just added those extra little words, which are all linked to things under the player's influence, something that they can control. Then the player learns an awful lot more and doesn't get so transfixed on outcomes. So yeah, some food for thought there for you if you're a coach, and for you as a parent, and maybe as a player too, when you're congratulating a teammate on something that they've done well. Try and help them learn why they've done well. There's some really, really important messages in this episode today, hence why I mentioned it's a special episode, because I think 99% of us do get caught up in outcomes, in results, and I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed it, you found it very helpful. And in terms of help, please do sign up to the X Factor newsletter, which I send out on a regular basis too. That's going to give you some more helpful tips and advice. See you for episode 201 on Friday. Have a great week in the meantime.